The curtain of the Aureum Theater lifted on a violet haze of footlights, the hush of the crowd almost a physical weight. Elias Blackthorne, crown prince of modern illusion, stood at center stage in his trademark midnight tailcoat, his top hat canted just enough to keep the house convinced that even his posture had secrets. The amplifiers hummed. He began his opening patter. Something airy about the human eye, about how it sees what it must, rather than what it does, and then memory shattered. He awoke backstage, lying across an upended stage crate, breath sawing in his throat. A prop manager was screaming, "Where's the medic? Get the medic!" A woman in sequins knelt beside him, pressing a cold cloth to his temple. "What happened?" Elias mumbled. Her mascara had bled downward. "You don't remember?" The chandelier of shock in her voice told him everything. He'd blacked out again. Outside, the audience's roar was a thunder that rolled between jubilation and panic. When Elias tried to stand, the woman's grip hardened. "Stay, Elias, you nearly died!" She gestured toward the stage apron, where crew members were lowering a heavy glass tank by winch. "You did the Crimson Escape, without water." A glacial shard slid down his spine. The Crimson Escape was a trick designed never to be attempted live. The glass coffin filled with dyed water, its inner walls lined with barbed hooks, was a purely theoretical grand finale, Elias's private challenge, still unsolved. Yet someone who looked like him had strode on stage and performed it while he lay unconscious. The crowd, apparently, watched Elias drown, break free in a flourish of crimson swirls, and bow triumphantly before disappearing into the smoke. The company paramedic arrived. Mild concussion, no external injuries, normal vitals. Police arrived next. 2 uniformed officers and Detective Rena Osoria, robbery homicide liaison with a tolerance for nonsense rumored to be 0. She listened as the crew described a Blackthorne who walked differently, spoke with a rougher timbre, and whose eyes were like polished hematite. She looked at Elias then. "Can you account for the last 20 minutes? No. Could you be performing in some dissociative state? Sleepwalking, maybe?" Elias shook his head. "I lose time. 10, 15 minutes, sometimes an hour, but when I resurface, I'm in a new room or on a different street. Tonight's the first time the blackout overlapped a performance." She scribbled, unimpressed. "If this was a stunt, Mr. Blackthorne, your insurance company will sue you into mist." It wasn't a stunt," he said, and meant it with a desperation that charred the edges of his voice. "Someone is using me." That night he replayed phone footage fans had posted. The camera captured him sealed inside the tank. There was no hidden panel, no oxygen line, no misdirection he recognized. And the look on the face behind the wavering red water was both his and not his. A predator's calm, and the tank burst. He emerged soaked and bloody, smiling. The timestamp marked 22:11. At 22:11 precisely, Elias recalled jolting awake backstage, already gasping for breath. He drank espresso at 3 a.m., staring into a black laptop screen that reflected a jittering phantom. He opened a notebook he'd kept since the blackouts began 4 months earlier. Dates, locations, missing hours, each circled in crimson ink. He noticed something new. The intervals between blackouts were shortening. First weeks apart, then days. This last gap had been 17 hours. At dawn, he telephoned his former mentor, Madame Voronin, a mentalist who had once faked her own death on a bullet catch tour. She answered in Prague, irritated and awake. "I need your counsel," he said. "You need a doctor, Elias. If you are splitting in two, no trick book will sew you shut. I need to know if that is what's happening, or if something else is at play." "You speak of a doppelganger," she muttered. "In folklore, its purpose is to warn or to replace. Either way, when it arrives, the original's days are numbered." He remembered the eyes in the tank. "Come to Prague," she said. "I can protect you for a while." But he couldn't abandon the investigation, not when public fascination was metastasizing. The tabloids called the phantom Blackthorne's Shade. Tickets for the next show sold out in minutes. Crowds hungered for a repeat miracle. Skeptics thirsted for exposure, and Elias felt like meat balanced above a carnival pit. The next performance loomed. Canceling would confirm weakness and invite lawsuits, yet going on stage meant standing on a trap door he could no longer see. So he made a plan. If the shade emerged, he would trap it. A magician's coin has two faces, after all. He hired a private security firm to guard every backstage corridor. He rigged infrared cameras behind the curtains, in the rafters, inside prop cabinets. Each feed would route to a kiosk where rookie technician Darren, bribed with an obscene overtime bonus, would watch for any sign of duplication. Detective Osiria, smelling malpractice, arranged a uniformed presence of her own. "If this shade of yours tries something criminal," she said, "I want eyes on it." Show night arrived. Elias swallowed benzodiazepines light enough not to dull reflexes, but to hush the adrenaline din. The crowd's expectation poured over him like static. Act 1. Classic rope dissolution. Act 2. Bullet catch with fiber optic muzzle flare. All routine. He felt his heartbeat in each fingertip, but his mind remained clear. If the blackouts obeyed some rhythm, he was perhaps outside it. At intermission, he strode into the wings to view Darren's monitors. Nothing. Every camera showed only him. Act 3 was the risk. The spectral mirror, a full-him silver rectangle that, on cue, manifested impossible reflections. In rehearsal, he'd planned to step through it into darkness, then reappear house right. Tonight he altered the script. He would invite the shade, if it existed, to step through instead. The orchestra struck a hush chord. The mirror rotated, catching the spill of footlights. Elias addressed the velvet house. "A reflection is an argument between presence and absence. What if absence wins?" He pressed his hand to the glass. Warm, solid. When he withdrew, the reflection remained, palm still lifted. Gasps rippled. He'd programmed no delay. The reflection smiled differently, a sliver too wide. Elias's stomach turned to liquid nitrogen. The shade. "Ladies and gentlemen," the reflection said, though Elias's lips did not move. "Shall we raise the stakes?" Its voice boomed deeper, pitched through the house speakers, hijacked by some patch he hadn't installed. The album in the mirror slammed its hand forward. Silver surface splintered like ice. Then it stepped through, its tailcoat dripping shards of mercury. Security burst into motion, but a flash gun detonated a magnesium wall of light. When the afterimage cleared, shade and mirror were gone. Elias stood alone on a stage that now felt like the gulping mouth of a tunnel. Sirens. Theater evacuated. No injuries, but no culprit either. Cameras. Static, as though the whole grid had been blank white for 2 minutes. Darren remembered nothing beyond a hot smell of ozone before he fainted. Osoria's skepticism became colder, sharper. 2 options, she told Elias in the alley behind the loading dock. 1. You are engineering these incidents. 2. Someone inside your circle is, with or without your consent. Give me names. He gave her a short list of personnel with unrestricted access. Prop Master Kenji Ito, choreographer Sylvie Marchand, Fire Marshal Liaison Peavy, and above all, his manager Arnold Quinn. He didn't mention Madame Voronin. That relationship was mercury too. Osoria dispersed to interview them. Elias, unsupervised for the moment, slipped away. He had a third hypothesis to test. He took a cab to the medical building of Dr. Agatha Holt, neurologist. Earlier scans had shown nothing unusual. No tumors, no lesions. Yet she admitted a minority of seizure cases could manifest complex automatisms, behaviors carried out during electrical storms of the brain. "Hook me to an EEG," he demanded. "Monitor me for 48 hours. I want to know if my brain is hijacking me." She complied, concerned. Leads were pasted to scalp, chest, wrists. He spent a night under observation, chained to a bed of wires. Midnight, 1, 2. No seizure spikes. But at 3:09 a.m., every hospital hallway camera winked out. Staff later described a man of mirrors crossing the cardiology ward. Elias awoke at 3:37, electrodes still intact, yet smelling of chlorine. Holt raced in, eyes as large as theater spots. "The therapy pool," she whispered. "Someone drained it. Water everywhere, glass on the tiles, and footprints leading nowhere." Elias stared at his own dry feet. He was discharged into police custody for further questioning. Quine posted bail and whisked him to a penthouse suite, whose windows overlooked the city like black dice boxes. Quine was sweating. "Sponsors are threatening injunctions," he said. "Either convince them the shade is an act, or we're finished." Elias's laughter was a cracked plate. "I will not lie." Quine's eyes, usually syrupy, flashed brittle. "Then we bury it another way." Quine produced a contract addendum. If Elias were incapacitated, theatrical rights would shift automatically to Quine's company, which could install a surrogate performer. A stunt double, Elias realized. "You?" Quinn shrugged. "The audience sees what it must." Pieces clicked. The shade's posture, broader shoulders than his own, a swagger he lacked. The eyes, maybe not hematite, but contact lenses. Post-production overlays on stolen footage. Someone used the mystique of his blackouts as an alibi for a live imposter. Yet the mirror tonight, was it technology or something else? His mind churned. Either Quinn orchestrated a human double, or Elias' psychosis was writing conspiracies on blank faces. He needed proof. He pretended to sign the addendum, scrawling nonsense. Quinn sealed the document without reading it. Bluff accepted. Then Elias requested solitude, claiming exhaustion. Instead, he searched the penthouse for hidden rooms. In the study, he found a dry cleaning bag containing a replica tailcoat, soaked cuffs crusted with red dye, hematite contact lenses in a velvet case, a voice modulator, and in a hidden drawer, a passport for one Lawrence Quinn. Photos seamless to Quine's face, but 60 pounds lighter and with a freshly shaven jaw. "Shade," Elias whispered. "Not supernatural corporate." Footsteps. He rehung the coat, slipped behind a bookcase door partly ajar. Quine entered with someone, Kinji Ito. They spoke in low burrs. "Cops are restless," Ito said. "Next show better deliver the body or they pull the plug." "We use the stalker's drop," Quine replied. "If the real Elias goes missing midair, people will assume the shade took his place permanently. I've arranged pyrotechnics to blur the swap." Ito hesitated. "Murder changes the deal." "Quine, we're past deals." Elias's pulse hammered. So that was the circle. Quine, Ito, perhaps others. They exploited Blackthorn's lapses. Had they induced those lapses? The benzodiazepines, maybe laced? The coffee? There was more to learn. At 4 a.m., Elias texted Detective Osoria from a burner phone. "Proof Quine impersonating. Need your help stopping homicide tomorrow. Come to Arenum. Leading Bay noon." He slipped out using a fire escape route he once rehearsed as a clown escape gag. Morning sun painted brass across wet asphalt. Elias dropped by the theater workshop, where he enlisted Sylvie Marchand, whose allegiance to Quine was rumor only. She listened, horrified, and agreed to help on one condition: we expose them during the stunt, in front of gods and ticket holders. Elias designed the trap using the same tools his enemies trusted. He replaced the mechanism in the stalker's drop rigging so the swap door would lock both ways. Whoever tried to vanish would remain suspended, spotlighted, above the stage. He wired an omnidirectional 4K camera to stream live on the house screens. Showtime, police-occupied balcony boxes. Osoria in plainclothes near the console, armed with the text intel. Quine paced backstage, wearing the duplicate tailcoat, the shade uniform. He'd dosed Elias earlier with coffee. Elias pretended groggy compliance but had swapped cups, drugging Quine instead. Slow-acting, hypnotic. Act 4 climax. The stalker's drop. A black steel cage, lowered from rafters, splits open. Artist vanishes in mid-fall, reappears in audience row. The swap depends on strobes and a trap door. Elias stood in the cage. Quine operated the winch. Crowd breathless, 30-foot height. Elias surveyed them, his voice steady. "We risk all so that strangers may dream." He saw Osoria's subtle nod. Descent began. The cage shuddered, doors clicked open. Fog bombs detonated, but instead of Elias dropping, the floor plate under Quine also pivoted. Quine plummeted through the hidden chute intended for the substitution. Only the new lock system sealed him part way, hanging upside down in the cage's twin beneath the stage, visible through a plexiglass floor Sylvie had installed minutes earlier. The house lights blazed. Crowd gasped at two blackthorns, one upright above, one flailing below, mask of arrogance melting into terror. Osaria strode on stage, badge aloft, officers trailing. Cameras magnified Quine's face. Contact lenses gleamed. His voice, hoarse, spewed threats. Evidence of dye, prop coats, passports surfaced in stagehand hands. Kenji Ito panicked, rushing a side exit. An officer tackled him. The net cinched. Elias stood silent as cheers, then confusion, poured through the theater. Some felt duped, some vindicated. No one dead. Not tonight. Police statements ran past dawn. Charges, attempted murder, fraud, reckless endangerment. Quine's plan, documented in emails on confiscated laptops, relied on Elias's blackouts as cover. Ito admitted to dosing Elias with scopolamine micro-quantities, disguised in herbal lozenges, inducing memory blackouts without overt impairment. Tech tampering supplied illusions the shade performed. Detective Osoria released Elias with a handwritten note. "You're free, but see a real doctor. Drug metabolites leave scars," she added. "Next time, hire a security consultant before the body doubles." He nodded, adrift. Yet in the echoing solitude of his apartment that night, a question remained. The mirror incident. How had Quinn done that? Elias reopened footage from fan phones. Frames interpolated by algorithms showed heat halos indicating two bodies on stage. One Elias, one Quinn. And yet, for 9 frames, the mirror gap between them glowed with a temperature colder than background, negative heat, an impossibility. Elias closed the laptop. In the window's glass he saw his reflection, correct and faithful. He lifted his hand. It followed. No delay. He breathed. As he turned away, the reflection moved half a beat slower. Its eyes 2 polished stones. It smiled a fraction too wide. His heart stuttered. He blinked, looked again. The reflection was ordinary. Street noise, distant siren, someone's radio. He poured a whiskey but did not drink. Then he opened a fresh notebook page, dated it, and wrote, "If not Quine, what else walks my shadow?" He let the ink dry. In time, the world would call this paranoia, PTSD, or the residue of drugs. Maybe they were right. But Elias Blackthorne knew theaters very well. Some curtains never come down. Somewhere, sometime soon, the lights would flare, and the shade real or imagined would try again to claim the stage. Until then, a magician rehearses.